Mike McCool here. I'm in the Royal Examiner studio today, and with me is Mark Sweberg. Mark is a local author. He's written a book called Once Holy Mountain. I'm going to hold this up here. Mark's going to zoom in on the cover, so when you go to Amazon, you'll be able to find it, right?
There you go.
And Mark is going to be at the Royal Oak Bookstore on September the 12th.
September 12th.
And that sounds like a Saturday.
It is a Saturday, and it'll be from 12 to 3. And it'll go beyond 3 if there are people still there.
Sure.
In other words, I'll stay there until there's nobody else there who's interested in the book. Then I'll go home.
Why not? The Royal Oak Bookstore is a fun place to go to anyway.
It is. It's so well laid out. The people are so friendly and so kind. Tammy is just a great human being.
Yes, she is.
And it's just it's a good place to hang out and enjoy. And she has a huge selection of books.
If you anything you can think of, she's
Yeah.
one of those kind of guys like. When there's a messy desk, the guy reaches in and grabs it. Well, that's kind of like the bookstore is. You want something, she can just talk to you, reach over the shelf, and there's the
And
book
find
you want.
it, yeah.
Might only have
Exactly.
one copy, but she's got it.
And she knows where it is.
She knows where it is. So Mark here, our cameraman, he loves the Royal Oak Bookstore. He goes down there all the time. So,
Well, Mark, I hope you're there to buy my book and get it signed for you.
well, Mark, everyone has a book inside of them. We were talking before we went on the air, some of your background of being in the military and the State Department and living in that part of the country. But what made you decide to write this book?
It was actually a very long process coming. As you mentioned, I lived in the Sinai professionally as an international peacekeeper from 1988 to 1989. And while I was there, I visited Mount Sinai, what is classically referred to as Mount Sinai. The locals call it Jebel Musa, the Mountain of Moses. And I determined that going there, it just didn't sit right that was Mount Sinai, mainly because of the distance it was from the main land of Egypt, particularly from where the capitals of Egypt have been. Didn't really think too much about it. It was okay. And I moved on. I went back to my career and continued. Well, I retired in 1994. And I took the opportunity to go back to the Middle East as another peacekeeper, this time as a civilian peacekeeper with an organization called the Multinational Force of Observers, created to maintain the peace between Egypt and Israel after the 73 war. When I knew I was going to go back, I started doing more reading about Mount Sinai, about what happened in that area. And I found out that there were a lot of different places that some scholar had claimed was the real location of Mount Sinai. So I thought to myself, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to have time off. I'm going to go visit all these places and see what there is. So I did that. During my 2 years, when I had free time, I could get in a vehicle, zip on off, and visit these places. There was only one place I couldn't visit, and that was a place that some have claimed was Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia, in the Western Arabian Desert. I couldn't visit that one, but I visited all the ones that were in the Sinai. When I left the Sinai, I got a job with the U.S. State Department, and I was the policy lead for international peacekeeping that the U.S. got involved in. Very busy job, one of the most rewarding jobs of my life. I set all my notes away, and I had taken notes about all these places I visited, what was important about them, what made them relevant to whoever was talking about it. In 2005, I got involved in biblical archaeology. And I spent several years participating in a dig in Jordan where we've uncovered the ancient city of Sodom. And the evidence is so overwhelming that even the scholarly community now is agreeing that this truly is Sodom. I decided to do my dissertation on where Mount Sinai is. So I started researching even now very seriously. Still hadn't thought about a book. I just decided, well, let's see if I can crank something out for a dissertation. I submitted my dissertation. It's in review. It may or may not be accepted. But I decided, I've got so much material here. Why don't I write a book? The dissertation is written like a dissertation. If you read it before you go to bed every night, you'll sleep really well and you will have no problems whatsoever. I didn't want that for a book. I wanted a book to be something that people could read, enjoy, and mostly understand. So I decided in 2010 that I was going to get serious about actually writing the book. And actually, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It was 2014 that I decided I was actually going to do the book. So I started actually writing it. It took me 6 years, but I wasn't particularly in a rush. I had other things to do, but that was my goal. And I decided that I had something to say. I really believe that where I proposed Mount Sinai is in fact the truth. Not because I thought it was the place, but because I did what apparently nobody else or very few other scholars have done. Instead of coming up with where I thought Mount Sinai was and then finding all the facts to support that, I decided to start with a blank sheet. I said, okay, where did the Israelites start from? Let's take it from there. And then using the archaeology, using the Bible text, really focusing on what the Bible says, and looking at the physics involved in moving people a distance. I followed where, kind of like what some writers have said. You if you search all the facts and you remove everything that doesn't fit the facts, what you have left must be the fact. And I just let it lead me to where the facts said the mountain should be. And there was actually a mountain there called Jebel Bishr, Bishr, that there was one other scholar I could find who actually also said was
pretty confident that this was everything. All the Bible pointed to that location.
It did. The Bible and the physics and the archaeology. I mean, there's not a lot of archaeology to support the Exodus because the sites just haven't been discovered yet. But there are a few. And those few were enough, and particularly the narrative in the Bible gave me enough evidence to be very, very confident of what I have here. I hope that when people read it, they'll read it, look hard at what I claim, and then go do their own research. Look around, see what's being said, see why I feel that these facts support the case. It's designed for that. It's designed for easy reading, and it's designed for people who do love the Bible, respect the Bible's facts, its history, its evidence, and are interested in something written about one of the most important events that is recorded in the Bible, be it the Old Testament or the New Testament, the Exodus from Egypt.
I see the title called Once Holy Mountain, so we're not going to consider it holy now. I don't think God wants it to be a holy place.
No, and that's why I selected the title. It's Once Holy Mountain because it was only holy one time when God met with Moses, and then later when God gave the Ten Commandments to Moses. When the Israelites left the mountain, it ceased being holy. When God left the mountain, it ceased being holy. In fact, many years later, during the time of the two kingdoms, Israel and Judah, the prophet Elijah had to flee for his life because the queen Jezebel wanted to kill him. People who read the Bible know about that. You know about that.
Remember that.
Yeah. Well, where did he go? He went to Mount Sinai, and he stayed in a cave in Mount Sinai until God told him it was safe to return. There's nothing in that text of the Bible that says, it's in 1 Kings, that says that the mountain was holy,
right?
That he had to be afraid of it, that he had to be careful of it. And even Moses didn't know the mountain was holy. Remember in the very beginning when Moses went up the mountain to see the burning bush that was not being consumed. As he approached, he heard God's voice, and God said, Moses, take off your sandals. You are trotting on holy ground. First I heard about it. And the mountain was only holy then. Only when God was there. In fact, God chose the mountain because it was not an important mountain. It was not a significant mountain. It was not the tallest in the Sinai. It was not the most imposing in the Sinai. It was a humble little mountain, easy to forget. Now it's interesting, when Elijah went there, he knew where it was. So that means that the oral narratives of the people were still remembering its location. So he knew how to get there. He knew where it was. But he knew also that it wasn't holy. No big deal. So that's why the title.
You mentioned the third as a humble mountain. If you look through the biblical text, a lot of the things that you see were humble, not something ornate. You know, we portray some of these called artifacts as being so ornate things, but in reality, we're just common, normal, humble things.
You know your Bible, my friend. You're absolutely right. You know, you think about how important King David is both to the Israelite narrative, the Old Testament narrative, and to the New Testament. And according to the New Testament, it says very clearly, Jesus comes from King David.
The lineage of David, right?
The lineage of David. And who was David? He was a nothing, nobody kid, the youngest son of a bunch of sons who were far more manly, according to the literature, the narrative of the Bible, and yet he had this purity of soul, and he was God's chosen. Not because he was a mighty warrior,
Or
not
because he was perfect.
or because he was far from perfect.
Far from
we
perfect.
all know that,
Right, but he was God's own heart, or
exactly.
yeah.
He had the pure heart, and so you're absolutely right. A lot in the Bible is humble, and God doesn't demand greatness. He demands purity of heart, obedience, and a man's goodness to his fellow man. Hey, how complicated is that?
That's actually, the message is quite simple.
It's a great message. Unfortunately, we seem to lose it a lot.
Exactly. Well, you have this book in you. Do you have another book in you, do you think?
Surprisingly, I do.
Every author does.
You know, and I didn't plan on this. It's funny you should ask, and thank you for asking. It gives me an excuse for free advertisement.
There we go.
I am working on a second book. It has nothing to do with the Bible. As I said, I was a civilian peacekeeper. The Multinational Force of Observers in the Sinai is the only peacekeeping mission in history where civilians serve as the military observers.
Right.
And it's very unique in that sense. When you look out into the world, there is nothing written about the civilian observers. You can go onto the web, you can go onto YouTube, and you can find a lot of videos and a lot of web pages that are dedicated to the different countries, as well as the United States, who have served in the MFO. MFO is short for Multinational Force and Observers. And there's nothing about the Civilian Observer Unit. And yet the Civilian Observer Unit had the single most important mission of the entire operation. They were the ones who actually went into the Egyptian military, into the Israeli military, and verified that they were complying with the terms of the treaty between them that ended the 73 war. I thought to myself, maybe I should write about that. And then I started thinking, well, how do I write it? So my first thought was, well, I'll go out to the world and invite people who have participated to send me their anecdotes. Tell me what they did.
Anthology of some sort.
Yeah. And then my wife, Nancy, reminded me that she had kept all the letters I wrote to her while I was there. 2 years, a letter every other day. And every letter started out basically the exact same way. I told her I love her and I missed her. At the end of it, I told her I loved her, I missed her, and looked forward to seeing her.
And this is what I did.
And in the middle, I told all the things I did. And as I was reading through these things, I said, I don't need to look for anything else. This is going to be the book. And so that's what I'm doing. In fact, the title, my working title of it is Journal of a Civilian Peacekeeper. And so I'm hoping that'll be out sometime by the end of this year, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe this one will be easier to write.
Well, this is actually this one is almost a labor of love, because whereas Once Holy Mountain required a tremendous amount of research, and I had to be able to back in just about everything I was saying, whether it was by text or something by good scholars, and I've got a fairly large bibliography in there. This next book is all about what I did. I don't have to research anything other than going through those letters.
Got a novel.
And I'm hoping so. I'm hoping it'll be interesting. But what I hope it does is I hope it teaches Americans about a truly amazing organization that very few people even know about. This organization is highly regarded by the Israelis and highly regarded by the Egyptians. And what's interesting, just to throw you kind of a teaser out here, as far back as 1990, as the early 1990s, the Israelis and the Egyptians were actually meeting each other with the MFO as the moderator because it was neutral ground. They both respected the MFO. They both liked the MFO, and they both felt comfortable and trusting that what they talked about wasn't going to go anywhere else. And today, and according to the treaty, again, I'll make it quick, but according to the treaty, the Egyptians are only allowed to have one mechanized division located in a narrow corridor on the western side of the Sinai Peninsula. Because of the terrorist threat that has developed in the Sinai Peninsula, the Israelis have agreed with no arguments to allow them to put 3 divisions throughout the Sinai. And they are operating to combat this very genuine threat that's a threat to the
All of
Egyptians as much as the Israelis.
Right.
Exactly. It's a threat to them all.
Right. You say it's not a biblical story, but blessed are the peacekeepers.
You know,
To throw that in
yes.
there.
No, I'm glad you did, and you're right. You know, when I retired from the Army, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to keep working. I wasn't sure what, and I decided that taking 2 years hiatus in the Middle East was a good way to kind of put my past into a perspective that I could look to the future. But it was also doing something that I already knew about, and something that I believed was bigger than myself, but worthy enough that I wanted to be a part of. Mm-hmm. I never regretted that choice. Although it slowed down what has been a truly wonderful marriage with a woman I love dearly, who is the second wife, far superior to the first. Nevertheless, I needed that time, and what I got out of it was both personally and very professionally rewarding. And the professional ended up being a benefit to me because I applied for a job in the State Department, and with my credentials as a peacekeeper, I was accepted, and the job was as a planner and as the chief of peacekeeping for the U.S. government.
How would you ever think
It
about
was
that?
it was tailor-made to me.
Exactly.
And I found out about it through a mutual friend.
Well, that sounds like you still have a active. You're using their career as you go forward into your retirement years.
Exactly.
It sounds like you're having fun.
Thank God I have been blessed. And yes, I am having fun. I am finding reward. And yeah, I will say, you know, it's not right. I thank the good Lord for all of that.
Well, you still have hair. So,
It's getting thinner, though, I'll tell you that.
so Mark, I really appreciate it. You know, everybody thinks about always wanting to write a book, and we just, you know, start off with that blank page, and then we quit.
Yeah.
You know, but it's in there somewhere. I think everyone has a story to tell, and it may not be written down. It could just be oral stories you tell your grandchildren.
Yes.
But I think it's important to do storytelling. And I tell people all the time, just turn your cell phone on or your camcorder and just record what you're doing, or your parents, you know, your grandparents while they're still living, is sit there and have, because as they get a little dementia, you know, they might not forget what they had for, they will forget what they had for breakfast, but they can tell you what they had for breakfast in 1943.
Yes.
So, and it's probably the truth.
Yes.
And so you probably should start recording those events, because that could be a book for someone one day. And in fact, we're doing that now. We're interviewing veterans. There's a whole movement on
Yes.
and all sorts of these things. Like you said, there's people all around the world that have shared these experiences, and I think that's part of our history that we just are forgetting. I think this, because we virtually don't have an oral history anymore.
Yeah.
We have such mobility, and people are from here to there. But think about that as you move forward, is to you know, think about those memories and the rewards of a long life.
I could not agree with you more. In fact, one of my biggest regrets is I did not do that with my father.
Right.
My father served in World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and he had some incredible experiences. But I only heard about them anecdotally as something else occurred, and he said, "Oh, by the way," and he mentioned these things instead of picking his brain. And I think your idea is a brilliant one. Go talk to the older members of your family. Talk to the ones who are loved ones, who have these histories, and turn on your cell phone, turn on a recorder, and while they're talking, just kind of set it down to the side and let them talk.
Exactly.
Because they will say things that should be left for posterity.
Yeah.
Some of the stories my father told me are truly amazing. I never put down enough to make. I share them with my daughter.
Right.
But
you can't share the whole experience.
The whole experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
so
agree
that's
with
important to do because, again, that could be your book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
It
there's
could.
people doing that now. You'll see all the time. Just scan through Amazon and you'll see,
You bet.
Like you say, letters of the Peacekeeper, So we do appreciate you coming in and talk to us, and thank you for supporting the Royal Oak Bookstore. It's a great gem here in Front Royal and Warren County.
It truly is. I really hope that people continue to support it and don't always focus on Amazon. You can go to Amazon and get probably most of the books that are in this store, but I'll bet you not all of them.
That's right.
But more importantly, you won't be able to talk to Tammy. You won't be able to sit down with other people who are fellow lovers in the reading and just enjoy a conversation talking about
Right.
what you're reading, what else is out there that is kind of like what you like to read.
Exactly.
Hey,
did you read this? And now you got a 5-star review in person.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really, I couldn't agree with you more. And Front Royal has so much to offer, and it is it's a lot more human because it's a smaller place, and people are more interpersonal. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy reading, the stuff that I'm not on Facebook, but my wife is, and she's frequently sharing with me things that are coming out of your paper. And your reporting and experiences. And they're just interesting. They tell me about the community that I just wouldn't get elsewhere. So I appreciate that, and
Thank
I'm
you.
deeply in your debt for your willingness to talk to me, to find out about this book. I do hope people will be interested in it. I really don't think they're going to be disappointed. It's written in an easy way. It's factual. I don't bend anything. But it doesn't have those 50-cent words that sometimes give people headaches. It's not written in a way that
Right.
I can sleep with it.
Right.
So
We have to reread it 3 or 4 times to get the message.
Exactly. It's not a deep.
It's not a textbook.
It's not a textbook, and it's not a dissertation.
Well.
It's not real long, but it's got all the meat in it. So I do hope they'll come out. I hope they'll read it. I will be honored to sign any book that anyone wants to buy and wants to enjoy.
Whether it's his book or not, he'll sign it.
I'll sign anybody's book. You bet.
Well, Mark, thanks again for coming in. It's September the 12th. It's a Saturday from noon to 3.
Noon to 3 or longer if necessary.
All right. And that's at the Royal Oak Bookstore on South Royal here in Front Royal. Again, mark your calendar. Come by, meet Mark in person, buy one of his books and have it signed. And make a great gift for maybe someone that's interested in that. Whether you're interested or not, maybe some of your family members are. And
Christmas is coming. It's a good place to buy books. And then comes Easter. And, remember, the Last Supper what was the Passover Seder. The Passover Seder commemorates and remembers
of the Exodus. The Exodus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yes, please consider it.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate that.